Oh hey, I didn't see it there. But hey, since you're here, let's talk about something really important. Proportion. Proportion has to do with the relationship of one element to another. So the size of your arms in relationship to your hands, or maybe the size of your head in relationship to the rest of your body. It's all about size relationships. So you might be thinking then, okay, but what does proportion have to do with art? Why do I need to know about proportions? Proportions have a lot to do with making things look realistic. If your proportions are wrong, like if you're drawing a person, or you're drawing an animal, or a landscape, or a building, and your proportions are off, it's gonna look a little bit less realistic, a little bit less believable. So when it comes to proportions in the human body, well, we can say that on average, your standard adult human is about 7 to 7.5 heads tall. Now, the average child is going to be about 5 heads tall. And then the average newborn baby fresh out of the womb is going to be about 3 heads tall. Now, as an artist, it's so important that you know the rules of proportion before you start breaking them. And yes, there are scenarios where you can break the rules of proportion. Right now, you're just looking at me head on. So if you were to draw me right now, you'd want to make sure that you're using the correct proportions, things like 7 heads tall, making sure that your arms are in proportion, so your wrists are in line with your crotch, your fingertips are in line with the middle of your thighs, your elbows are in line with your belly button. But if you were drawing me like this, you wouldn't be using the same kind of proportions because I'm laying down. You're looking at me at an angle, and this is called foreshortening. Basically, you're shortening the parts of the body to create a sense of depth, to make it look like one part is closer to you than another part. So for me, and for you guys, it looks like my head is bigger and my feet are smaller than they actually are. That's not reality. My feet and my head are still proportionate to my body, but it doesn't look like that right now. It's creating the illusion of depth. That's my kitty. Now at this point you might be asking yourself, Miss Connors, didn't we learn about something called the golden ratio? And you're right, we did. The golden ratio is important to know about because it can help you compose an artwork and also figure out proportions of the human body. Now the ratio, as a ratio, is 1 to 1.6. So imagine that you have a line, and that line is broken up into 2 lines. One line is longer, and one line is smaller. The shorter line is 1, and the longer line is 1.6. That longer line is 1.6 times longer than the shorter line. The golden ratio, or the golden sector, as we know it 1 to 1.6, was invented by a Greek mathematician named Euclid. Now, why did he come up with this ratio? Well, the Greeks were obsessed with perfect, beautiful proportions, and they wanted to figure out a proportion that they could use to apply to their artwork, to make artwork that was beautiful and that had perfect proportions. So Euclid discovered you could use this perfect rectangle to design things like artwork and architecture. So let's talk about the golden ratio as it applies to composing an artwork. So you have a golden rectangle, okay? It's a standard rectangle. It's got a square, and then it's got that extra little bit off to the side. So that little rectangle inside, that's 1, and then the bigger square is 1.6. Okay, that line that divides the rectangle in half is where you want to put the subject of your artwork or of your shot. So right now, I am lined up on the golden ratio in this shot that we're in right now. I have a square off to the side over here, and then I've got this rectangle off to the side over here. Why do artists do this? Well, the biggest reason is that it creates interest. If your head is just right here in the center, it just looks kind of boring. You know, there isn't really a whole lot going on, but if I'm off to the side, it just creates a lot more visual interest. It keeps the viewer's eye kind of traveling throughout the image. If I'm just right here, exactly in the center, you're just gonna look right at my face. But if I'm slightly off to the side, notice how your eye wants to kind of travel a little bit through the background, and you can sort of imagine that Fibonacci spiral forming around here. So the most important thing is right here in that center of that spiral. or on that dividing line, and then everything else forms around it. You can find the golden ratio and the golden rectangle pretty much everywhere. It's in nature, and it's in human man-made design as well. There's so many places in the human body that we can see the golden ratio. One of our classic examples is from the wrist to the fingertips is 1, and from the elbow to the fingertips is 1.6. Another example, from your belly button all the way down to your foot is 1, and from your head to your foot is 1.6. Another example, from your head to your belly button is 1, from your belly button to your toes is 1.6. Well, ladies, that just about wraps up our crash course in proportions. I'll see you next time, and stay safe on the roads.